Behold the 21st century Joseph Goebbels, Donald Trump's answer to Valarie Jarret, former Breitbart CEO Steve Bannon. And for all those conservatives out there who were hopeful that Donald Trump could be controlled and steered toward being an actual conservative, this is not a good sign. As Joe Cunningham points out this morning at Red State, Trump's inner circle will do him more harm than good. And that is a function of Trump's unfitness and unqualification for the office that he has now attained. Somewhere around 1800 years ago, a Chinese strategist named Zhu Lang wrote a treatise called Mastering the Art of War, referencing Sun Tzu. The treatise is a basic guide to organizing your forces and choosing generals. It holds up pretty well as far as guidelines of leadership go. Mastering the Art of War describes several good and bad characteristics of generals, and Donald Trump's inner circle exemplifies a lot of what you don't actually want in leaders. Ultimately, this goes back to the head of the snake, and that ship has now sailed. If Trump is to have a successful regime, he's going to have to make some changes that he's not capable of making. In the section of the treatise called Chasing Evils, we find the following, quote, "There are 5 types of harm and decadence among national armed forces. 1. First is the formation of factions that band together for character assassination, criticizing and vilifying the wise and the good." You can already see where this is headed, can't you? Number 2, second is luxury in uniforms. Third, wild tales and confabulations about the supernatural. That would be like InfoWars and Breitbart and the like. 4 is judgment based on private views, mobilizing groups for personal reasons. That also sounds very familiar, doesn't it? And finally, number 5 is making secret alliances with enemies, watching for where the advantage may lie, which gets back to Trump's connections with Vladimir Putin. All people like this are treacherous and immoral. Sounds like all Trump supporters. You should distance yourself from them and not associate with them, aka never Trump. Close quote. Now pay attention to numbers 1 and 4, as I emphasized in my recitation, as they are perfect descriptions of Trump's chief strategist, aka his version of Valarie Jarret, aka the 21st century Joseph Goebbels. That would be Steve Bannon. His running of Breitbart has resulted in weaponized propaganda used for character assassination, attacking people who were otherwise good solely for their opposition to something Bannon agrees with. He has also specifically ordered his reporters to take out politicians like Paul Ryan, Speaker of the House. It is entirely likely that Bannon will work as hard as he can to torpedo anyone he believes is a threat to his position and power. He will undercut Reince Priebus, the designated White House Chief of Staff, at every turn, and anyone else Trump selects for a cabinet position will be the type of person that cannot overshadow Bannon. And remember, when we go through all this and it sounds like a Bannon bashing, not that he doesn't deserve to be bashed to a pulp, metaphorically speaking, of course. But just remember, Trump brought him in. Trump put him where he is. So don't think for one single solitary minute that what I'm talking about, all the bad, horrible things about Steve Bannon, that this doesn't also apply to Trump, because Bannon is where he is now thanks to Trump. Trump put him there, and Trump would not have put him in that position of being the true right-hand man if he didn't want him there, and if he didn't know all about this. I mean, Steve Bannon is Trump's mini-me. Understand this. Everything I'm saying about Bannon, it applies double to Trump. It's no accident. It's no coincidence. See, there is a reason that Rudy Giuliani is the favorite for Secretary of State over a guy like John Bolton, who was born for the job. And a far, far better pick. There's also a reason Linda McMahon could be overlooked for someone else whose successes in business aren't as well known. Bolton and McMahon are good picks for the Trump regime, but they are bigger personalities and far more successful ones than Bannon and Trump. And so their egos simply won't allow it. What Trump is at risk of in trusting guys like Bannon is bringing on people who might be okay at the job, but who are simply not strong enough to serve as a counter voice to him. To someone who can, as a trusted advisor and a capable advisor, who can go to Trump and say, no, Mr. President, we cannot do that. No, Mr. President, this is stupid. It's politically stupid. It's policy stupid. It's just plain stupid. You think Donald Trump is going to tolerate anybody who would tell him what he doesn't want to hear? Remember what I've been saying. Character is destiny in leaders. And Donald Trump has a bottom-feeding character. We've been through it countless times before. He's a liar. He's immature. He's coarse. He's puerile. He's unstable. He's volatile. He's vengeful. He's petty. He's small. He's not going to tolerate anybody, a palace guard, a cabinet, close advisors who will do anything other than kiss his ass. That's what his cabinet will be. The Donald Trump Kiss My Ass Club. And they will all do it with full tongue. Bannon will see to that. What Trump is at risk of entrusting, as I say, guys like Bannon, is bringing on people who might be okay at the job, but who simply are not strong enough to serve as a counter voice to Trump. If Trump wants to be a successful president, Cunningham goes off the rails here a little bit. He says, if Trump wants to be a successful president, and we know he does because it benefits his ego and brand all at the same time, then he's going to have to wise up to Bannon's act. But remember, Trump thinks he can be a successful president by being Trump. This is where even a lot of member Trumpers are saying, well, I hope Trump does this, or I hope Trump does that. But hope is pointless. We know better. We know better. Trump is not going to wise up to Bannon's act. Trump knows Bannon's act, and Trump agrees with it. And he thinks that's how he's going to be successful. Let's not let hope blind us to the reality of what's happened here and what's happening and what this country is going to have to endure if it can survive it for another 4 years. See, if Trump hires people who are not as strong as they need to be, then his regime will crumble around him. Yeah, it's going to. Dumpster fire from day one. If he were to choose strong voices who are not afraid to tell him, and more importantly, Steve Bannon, no, then he would have a better shot at getting things accomplished. But he doesn't think that's the way to go. He doesn't think that he's going to be successful that way. He thinks he's going to be successful Bannon's way. Because that's how Trump thinks. This is not difficult to see. This is not difficult. I mean, the only way you can't see this is if you're willfully looking the other direction and just making up things and say, well, I hope this, or, oh, if he wants to succeed, he'll do this. Well, yeah, but he doesn't agree on how to be successful. And when you look at this entire 2016 campaign, why would he think otherwise? Trump did everything wrong and won anyway. Why would he think now that, well, now I better change the way I do things because I want to be a successful president? He became president-elect by doing everything wrong. Why would he change horses in midstream now? Sooner or later, you're all going to find out. Sooner or later, you're all going to find out. And very few, if any of you, will accept it. But you're going to find out anyway. If Trump does not watch his step, if he is the type of successful person he claims to be, then deep down he already knows this to be a fact, but no, he doesn't. He does not know that. He knows the opposite. It reminds me of the time when Ronald Reagan said, the problem with liberals is that they know so much that isn't so. And so it is with Trump and his supporters. However, if he does not watch his step, this inner circle he's building around him will be weak, inefficient, and cost him and the Republicans in the long run. Yeah, I'd say that's pretty much a guarantee. Now, I've never been huge on playing up the Donald Trump as a racist angle. I mean, Trump has always struck me as more kind of an Archie Bunker-esque type of person. Someone who is not militantly racist, but is just ignorantly so, ignorantly prejudiced, which would help explain the all illegal aliens are rapists and whatever. So I've never really played that up very much. Certainly not like left-wing nuts do. But it's also true that, as the old saying goes, you are known by the company you keep. And the so-called alt-right, the KKK, white supremacists, etc., glommed on to Trump early on, enthusiastically, loudly, and Trump never really disavowed them. To this day, he really has not disavowed them. Now, he hasn't adopted their rhetoric, but he hasn't told. I mean, you would think that if Trump didn't have some sympathy with these people, that he would go out and say, they do not stand for what I stand for. I disavow them. I don't want their support. I am not them. They are not me. But he's never really done that throughout the whole campaign and up into and including to this very day. And here's the telltale aspect of this. Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon has, he turned Breitbart into the propaganda arm of the alt-right. And now Trump has made Steve Bannon his version of Valarie Jarret, his right-hand man. So what does that tell you about Trump? And look, the KKK and the American, I'm not making this up, KKK and the American Nazi Party are happy about Trump's hiring of Steve Bannon to be his right-hand man. Again, they're not being quiet about this. They are totally out from under the rocks under which they existed for all these years, all these decades. Susan Wright brings this to our attention today at Red State. While none of this absolutely makes Donald Trump a racist himself, or even an enabler, well, enabler, yeah, I'd say he's an enabler of racists and that ideology, they still seem unusually drawn to him for, I mean, you would think that, what do they know that nobody else does? And Trump doesn't disavow him, just doesn't disavow them. Or he can't, or he wouldn't have made Steve Bannon his right-hand man, his version of Valarie Jarret. Trump's refusal to condemn the alt-right outright is that sticking point that draws people back with suspicion. That and his associations. Here's a quote from thehill.com. President-elect Donald Trump is drawing praise from the Ku Klux Klan, neo-Nazis, and other white nationalist groups, white supremacist groups, for appointing former Breitbart executive Stephen Bannon as his chief strategist. Perhaps the Donald is for real, said Rocky Suhaida, chairman of the American Nazi Party, told CNN in a segment that included interviews with several white nationalists or white supremacists. Now, Trump made a token disavowal of David Duke and the KKK back during the primaries, but only after several days and several unflattering media reports on the matter. You remember how that week went, right? Where it wasn't a disavowal so much as it was, well, I'll say what you want me to say and then get off my back. I mean, clearly, at best, Trump is indifferent to the alt-right. He certainly doesn't have any moral problem with them. And at worst, well, look who he appointed as his right-hand man. Stephen Bannon, their propaganda minister. Their Joseph Goebbels, if you will. Bannon will push Trump in the right direction, suggested Richard Spencer, president of the White Supremacist National Policy Institute. That would be a wonderful thing. It makes sense to me, added Brad Griffin, author of the white supremacist website Occidental Dissent. Bannon will hold Trump to the promises he has already made during the campaign, Griffin added. We endorse many of those promises like building the wall, deportations, ending refugee resettlement, preserving the Second Amendment. Close quote. I mean, it is fun beyond description watching the left just in the depths and throes of despair. I mean, 8 years ago, they thought they had it for good, and now look where they are. So, I mean, it is delicious schadenfreude. But when you see stories like this, you got to start, you start thinking, maybe they do have a certain degree of justification for being scared bleepless. And what that means for race relations in this country. I mean, Barack Obama flushed them down the toilet, and now Trump is going to send them to the bottom of the septic tank, is what it's looking like so far. See, Bannon is just a wretched character. His presence on Trump's team adds nothing but chaos. And remember, Trump put him there. Never forget that. Just like Barack Obama put Van what was his name? Van Williams, you know, the avowed Marxist Leninist that he made his green jobs czar or green energy czar or whatever that was. Uh, Same thing with Bannon. Trump has put him in that position. So you can't think that that Trump will wise up about Bannon. He wouldn't have put him there if he didn't want him there. And you can't tell me that Trump doesn't know what Bannon is. And yet he brought him on board. You know, a leader is known by the company he keeps. In fact, it will be hard for Trump to continue to disavow the racist, anti-Semitic portion of his fan base with Bannon on board. Bannon himself told Mother Jones over the summer that his his National Socialist news outlet was the platform of the alt-right, a far-left ideology that promotes white supremacism. He came out and said it. Bannon came right out and said, I am a Nazi. For all intents and purposes. And now Trump has made him his right-hand man, his top advisor. I mean, I don't like going in this direction, talking about this kind of thing, but this is what Trump has done. You know, this is not me sitting here and saying, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if Trump made Bannon his right-hand man, his top advisor, because Trump is really a closet Nazi, and this is not a prediction, in other words. I'm not predicting this. I didn't predict this because I didn't want to predict this, but this is not a prediction. This is fact. This is what's really happening. And there's not a wide range of conclusions to draw from it. Again, Bannon told Mother Jones over the summer that his news outlet was the platform of the alt-right, a far-left ideology that promotes white supremacism. He came out and said it. And note that the media story here says that Bannon told Mother Jones over the summer that his conservative news outlet, his platform of the alt-right, there's nothing conservative about this. See what I mean about how Trump is destroying the brand of the right, destroying the GOP brand for generations? Under Bannon's leadership, Breitbart ran headlines such as Bill Kristol, Republican spoiler, renegade Jew. Gabby Giffords, the gun control movement's human shield. And birth control makes women unattractive and crazy. If they were trying to destroy the right, trying to destroy the GOP, they couldn't have done a more effective job. Bannon has also made anti-Catholic comments about Speaker Paul Ryan on his radio show. Now, I have a theory, and it all goes to the rumors of Trump TV and the Donald's desire to build a viewership and get out quick rather than actually win. Perhaps he thought that having Bannon around would make things so ugly that he would lose decisively. It just didn't work. Of course, you know, the problem with that theory is Susan Wright's theory, but the problem with that theory is that now that he has one, why would he put somebody, name somebody his top advisor whom he was hoping secretly would sink his campaign to even get to the White House? Wouldn't you think that? I mean, if Trump was trying to lose, if he was trying to tank the election by bringing in Steve Bannon, I mean, does he want to tank his presidency as well? Again, that's not what he thinks he's doing. That's not what he thinks he's doing. He thinks bringing in Steve Bannon is a great idea. That's exactly what he wants. He wants a Nazi for his top advisor. And he thinks that's going to be hugely successful. Again, not a whole lot of alternative explanations. It really is what it looks like, is what it is. So whatever his reasoning for bringing in such a loathsome man in such a high-profile position, we have not heard the last of it, nor will we anytime soon. Again, if you as an American voter wanted a break from the drama, wanted a break from controversy, wanted a break from crap stirring, you voted poorly. And now we go on over to the strident conservative website, David Leitch, and his forecast for what a trumpetancy with Stephen Bannon as his XO is going to do to the First Amendment over the next 4 years, or maybe fewer. Now allow me to take you back to June 2013. It was a time of great frustration in our nation's capital as the Washington elite, led by Senators Lindsey Graham and Chucky Schumer, grappled with an issue that Graham called one of the great issues of our time. And what was this great issue? Was it Islamic terrorism? Perhaps it was the economy? Or maybe it was abortion or pseudo marriage? Nope. It wasn't any of these trivial matters. The issue that consumed their souls dealt with finding a way to limit and control the First Amendment rights of the press. Let's review, shall we? The First Amendment to the United States Constitution reads as follows. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances, the latter of which enshrines the right to lobby. It's right there in the Constitution. Lobbying is constitutionally protected. So all of you out there who say, oh, we're going to get those lobbies, we're going to get K Street. No. They have every right to be there. It is enshrined in the Constitution, in the First Amendment itself. Right at the top of the Bill of Rights. But we're talking about freedom of the press here. Known under its original name as the Free Flow of Information Act of 2007, Schumer and Gramnesty presented a new version of the law designed to identify real journalists, in other words, the Anti-Blogger Act is another way of describing it, in order to, according to the bill's sponsors, preserve the right of journalists to protect their sources. But according to Andrew Ferguson of the Weekly Standard, the law would actually lay the foundation for government-controlled media. Here's the quote. The act will go a long way toward establishing a government-sanctioned journalistic class. There will be, on the one hand, approved reporters who are immune to certain kinds of governmental inquiry, and on the other hand, everyone else. Those less exalted citizens who, faced with the same governmental inquiry, would just have to knuckle under. The act is a classic restraint of trade, protecting favored journalists from the pressure of competitors who lack the proper credentials. Close quote. Now, while this bill died in Congress in 2013, its spirit lives on within the new regime of President-elect Donald Trump. Over the weekend, Trump announced the appointment of Steve Bannon the self-avowed champion of the alt-right and the executive chairman of Breitbart News, as his chief strategist, his Valarie Jarret. During the campaign, Bannon was the CEO of Trump's team, where he turned the once respected Breitbart News into Trump's personal Pravda. And he plans to continue using it as a weapon to take down Trump's political enemies, who, of course, are all Republicans. But that's not the worst part. Bannon's new gig essentially makes him Trump's propaganda minister. Donald Trump's answer to Joseph Goebbels. In 2013, there were those in news media who supported the Free Flow of Information Act in order to protect their own selfish interests, regardless of the constitutional implications. Now, just as then, there are those in news media who support similar unconstitutional efforts when it comes to the Trump regime, such as Sean Hannity, who tweeted over the weekend where he advocated banning news organizations such as CNN, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and others from having access to the White House. Remember back in 2009, parenthetically, ladies and gentlemen, when the Obama White House tried to do the same thing to Fox News? And do you remember what the rest of the White House press corps did? Did they go, yeah? No, they circled the wagons around Fox. That was a bridge too far even for them. Even on behalf of their own demigod. They wouldn't do it. They wouldn't go along with it. They wouldn't cheerlead it. They wouldn't accept it. They stood with Fox News against their own president. And in effect, stood for the First Amendment. And now, here's Sean Hannity saying, yeah, let's ban all the rest of them. It's not like I'm comfortable having to point these things out. But, you know, this is what Trump mania has done. It has exposed things about my own side that I never would have dreamed were possible. But here it is, and I can't not point them out. So I tell you, it's the reason why I am so glad I am an independent now. A conservative independent. Because there's no way I could have defended this crap. I mean, if you offered to pay me to defend this crap, I don't think I could have done it. In hindsight, it's ironic that the events we are witnessing within the Trump regime took place in the Obama regime as well. Obama targets the media when they print unfavorable news, so does Trump. Obama uses propaganda to control information, Trump will be doing the same. Obama is no fan of the Constitution, and neither is Trump. Obama had Valarie Jarret to silence political enemies, and Trump has Steve Bannon. Trump frequently mentioned his dislike of the media during the campaign, but what he really meant was the media that he didn't like, the media that didn't kiss his ass. Once stating how he would like to expand libel laws in order to make it easier for him to sue them into bankruptcy and silence when they write something negative about him. Is it possible that his personal bias, the Bannon appointment, and the support of media types like Hannity will bring a new effort to kill freedom of the press? Just in the opposite direction? And could he actually do it? And remember what earlier segment we talked about how Trump is not going to have strong people around him who will be able to go to him and tell him, no, Mr. President, that's a stupid idea. He's just going to have sycophants and bootlickers and ass kissers around him, yes men who will just say, yes, sir, Mr. President, that's an awesome idea, no matter how stupid the idea is. Who around him is going to tell Trump that, no, this notion of trying to shut down the rest of the media is really not a good idea? There's nobody around him to tell him that. If there were going to be, he wouldn't have appointed Steve Bannon his top, chief strategist in the first place. It's that simple. Whatever Bannon does, whatever Bannon says, has Trump's seal of approval. Or Bannon wouldn't be in a position to do or say any of it. The apparent answer to that question should frighten us all. But again, we warned you. For 17 months, we warned you. We said, if we're going to get tyranny, we are going to get disasters over the next 4 years, why not have it on the Democrats, not us? You wouldn't listen. Far too few on the right would listen. It was all, but Hillary! Well, guess what? Now it's but Trump. And there's nothing you can do about it, and there's no place for you people to hide. And the thing that pisses me off is that you're going to take the rest of us down with you.